Hello. The next of diagrams or the next point which we are supposed to know is diagrammatic dialog notations. So it is going to cover majorly state transition nets, that is STN, Petri nets, state charts, flow charts and JSD diagrams. Before starting with actually the diagrammatic notations, we will see what is a dialogue. So dialogue is nothing but a conversation between two or more parties. The dialogue is supposed to be usually cooperative. In user interfaces, it refers to the structure of the interaction, syntactic level of human-computer conversation. When we are talking about the dialogue, we would say there can be different levels also. So the first level could be lexical, which covers or talks about the shape of icons. The actual key is pressed or not, how is it visible? The syntactic level, where we would be talking about the order of inputs and outputs. The semantic level, where it provides about the effect on internal application or data. From this, we could say that dialogue is a conversation between two or more parties to imply a level of cooperation or at least intent to resolve a conflict. In the design of user interfaces, the dialogue has a more specific meaning, namely the structure of the conversation between the user and the computer system. So when we are talking about the dialogue, we should know the notations and the design. So dialogue notations could be either diagrammatic or textual. We are going to talk about the diagrammatic notations over here in this particular video. But let's see what are them. They would be talking about the state transition networks, the JSD diagrams, the flow charts, the state charts and so on. The textual notations are nothing but the formal grammars, production rules, the CSPs and so on. The dialogue is basically linked to the semantics of the system. That means it is intended to find out what it does. The presentation of the system means how the system is going to look like. So this is the thing which is linked to the dialogue of a system. The formal description can be analyzed for consistent actions, for difficult to reverse actions, for missing actions, for potential miskeying errors. So, we would say in user interfaces, the term dialogue is often taken to be almost synonymous with the syntactic level, which talks about the order of input and the output. Now, we would be seeing the diagrammatic dialogue design notations. The first one of that type is the STN or the state transition network. Over here, we can see a diagram. Now, what this diagram is actually talking about? As the name suggests, we would be learning about the states. So there are different types of states which we have already learned somewhere or the other while learning your engineering concepts. So consider here, let us consider an example of a simple mouse based drawing tool. It has a menu. Okay, so it has a menu with two options. One is for circle and the other one is for line and a drawing surface. If you select a circle, so if you are over here, what would happen? You are allowed to click on two further points. So we have to click on two further points. So circle 2 and then we would say it would be a finish option. The first of these is a circle center. So this is going to allow us to only create a circle ka center. And the next one will allow us to create the circumference of the circle. So how big the circle is supposed to be, the circumference would be decided. After the first point is selected, the system draws a rubber band line between the center and the current mouse position. After the second point is chosen, the circle is actually drawn. Okay, so this is this part of the circle drawing actions. Now let's see the same thing for the line option. The line option in the menu is to draw a polyline. That is, the user can select any number of points on the drawing surface which the system connects with the straight lines. Fine. So the last point is denoted as a double click on the mouse. So as soon as you want to finish the number of lines which you were drawing, you need to double click on that. So which action is supposed to be performed? Double clicking action is expected from the user. Again, the system rubber bands between successive mouse positions. So in the slide shown as an STN describing tool, we can see how the STN basically looks like. So this figure basically explains a state transition network where we have a menu, okay, then we have some special states which we would be calling as the start state and the finish states, okay. These are the transitions from one state to the other. So STN is able to represent a sequence of user actions and system responses. Over here we can say that once we have clicked for one particular point for a line, we have to click on the next point. Similarly, once we have clicked on the center of a circle, we need to click on the circumference of the circle also. So we say that the notation is state heavy and the events require most of the details over here. Now over here, this is a compulsory part which is expected over here. So labels and circles a bit uninformative, so we don't know what is actually circle 1 and circle 2. It should have been written properly over here. So states are hard to name in some of the cases but are easier to visualize. The next model is going to be about the hierarchical STN. So this basically talks about the hierarchical type of model where we have managing complex dialogues, okay. We can either select graphics, we can select text, or we can select paint from the main menu, okay, and all of them could be called as or named as sub dialogues. This is another example where we are saying that we have another set of dialog boxes where we have three types of text which we can have: bold, we can have italics, or we can have underlined text which we can select. So for each of the three of them, we can have state transition diagram drawn as shown over here. So if we click on bold, we would be going to from no bold to bold. If you click on italic, we can go from no italic to italic, or if we want to deselect it, we can go back further, and so on. This is a concurrent dialog example where we would say that we have bold and italic states combined together. So if we can have a combination of two states also at a time. So initially we had no style. So if we want to click on bold and first we want to make it bold, so we would say click on bold. So bold only. Fine. Now after that, if we want to make the bold text in the form of italic, so we will go further with the same text from over here from the state of bold only to italic. So now it will become a state as bold italic. We can do it the other way around also by selecting the italics first and then proceeding further to make it bold, okay. This is the next example where we can have all the different states which are mentioned over here as shown as we discussed in the previous slide. So from no style we can go to bold, we can underline, we can italic, and so on. Once the text is made in italics format, we can also make it bold and italic, and along with that we can also underline the text. So over here, reaching this state, we would say that we can go from any number of steps which are marked over here. Now the next set of types of diagrammatic notations are Petri nets, which are one of the oldest notations in computing. It is a graphical formalization of design reasoning about concurrent activities. In recent years, it has been used by several researchers to specify aspects of single user and multi-user system. Okay, so it can be used for multi-user or single user system. In an STN, the system is always at exactly one state. Indeed, you can simulate the behavior of the system by moving a counter around the STN following arcs. A Petri net is similar except that the system has several states at once. These are depicted by several black counters, as we would be seeing them in the next example. An object-oriented variant of called interactive cooperative objects or ICO has been used extensively by the HCI group at the University of Toulouse. This is an example of Petri-net. So we can say that the figure shows a Petri-net for a system having two near independent bold or italics toggles. The circles, so we have bold and we have italics. So these are the two toggles where it can switch from one to the other. This is a set of transition, we would say. The circles are called the places like states, and the thin rectangles are called the transitions. So these are the transitions we would be saying. So T1, T2, T3 and T4 are all the four transitions, and the circles we would be saying are nothing but the places like the states. There are three counters, one in the bold on place showing that the bold toggle is currently on. So there are three counters saying bold is on over here, the first one. Okay, one in the italic off, so one is for italic off. So bold on, bold off, italic on and italic off. One in the slightly elliptical form or elliptic circle uses press bold place, showing that the user has just pressed the bold toggle. The slightly elliptic places represents those where the user input can occur. So these are the ones where the user inputs can specifically occur. So we can have this as the input. So pressing the bold or pressing the italic. The rule is that if all the places with the arcs going into the transition have a counter, then the transition can fire, and all the counters from the input places are removed and a new counter placed on the output of the transition, as we can see over here while transiting from bold on to and going to the italic on. In the figure, there are counters in both the input places of the transition T1, which will therefore fire, leaving a single counter in place of bold off. So if we fire from over here, we can go directly to the transition of going to bold off, and so on can be done for the italics part also. So these are the elliptical curves which are there, which will allow us for an input state in case of Petri-net. Okay, these are few of the examples of designing diagrammatic design notations, diagrammatic dialog design notations. There are few more named as state charts and Jackson structure design for us, which are there. Also we have flowcharts as a part of the syllabus.